It's currently about 2 degrees C, which is about 28.4 degrees Fahrenheit, so relatively chilly. So we're going to have a look around the polytunnel and you can see some things I've got growing. This here is a Sanguinelli blood orange. Now I've owned it for a few years now. I purchased it from Victoriana Nursery. Its first winter with me, I overwintered it in an unheated conservatory. The second winter, I placed it in my other polytunnel with additional green covering, such as this, over the top of it when the temperature dropped. Now, this winter, I'm keeping it in the ground here in this polytunnel planted. Now, I'm not giving it any other protection apart from the polytunnel itself, so it's going to be interesting to see how this does. Now I'm expecting it to get through the winter. There's certainly no signs of any damage that I can see to it. Now Wednesday night it's going to get down to about -5 degrees C, which is about 23 degrees Fahrenheit, so we'll see how it does. I'm quite interested to see how this does, because what I'm trying to do is to find sustainable ways of producing things such as oranges here in the UK, and indeed bananas, in far from ideal climates from them. And if I can find ways of doing that, I think that could be very helpful to people. Got some perpetual spinach down here, so I grew these from seed the way that I quite often grow things, and what I do is I plant the seeds in cell trays, grow them on and then plant them out. So I put them in the ground here last autumn, and you can see that there's still a nice edible crop there, putting out these nice little tender leaves. Very nice to taste, nice to boil or steam, and spinach is very nutritious as well. Now many of the crops I've got planted out here in the polytunnel recently have actually started to grow, because we were getting some warmer temperatures. Like the other day, for example, it went up to about 14 degrees C, which is about 57.2 degrees Fahrenheit. But now of course it's got cold again, and you can see the light levels here are relatively low because there's snow on the polytunnel, so the growth is going to slow right down. But that period of warmer weather that we had certainly did bring things on here in the polytunnel. Got some chard and some more spinach here. I believe the variety of chard is Ford Hook Giant Chard. So taking pickings from this, and you can see looking very healthy indeed. So some nice greens there to eat. This is kale variety Red Russian. It's a very nice kale. You can use it in salads or you can boil it as well. So a nice versatile kale. So I've got some lettuce here. Now this is Winter Density, which is an absolutely fantastic lettuce. And I have some lettuce here variety all the year round. Again, another first-rate lettuce in my opinion. And some kale here, still very small, and this is variety Westland Autumn. Now overwintering hardy vegetables such as these, particularly the green leafy ones, is very useful, because once the days start to get longer, as indeed they are now, and the temperature increases, they'll come into growth. So you can actually get some nice early crops and bridge what is known as the hungry gap, where there is not so much to eat from the garden or the allotment. So a very useful little thing to implement into your gardening. Now, what is a really great thing to do is have vegetables such as these planted out in the late summer, early autumn. And what you want to do is to not touch them. You want to leave them and let them get a really nice size before it gets too cold and the days get short, and therefore the growth will slow down or stop. That way you've got some nice large leaves that you can harvest throughout the winter. Don't take too many off of each one at a time. Let it stay nice and strong, but have plenty of them, and you can literally be picking some nice greens all the way up until around March time, even into April. Then of course they will go to seed, but that way you're bridging that gap, and it's a really important tool for your self-sufficiency. And one great thing about that is you don't need a large garden to do it. You can do it in pots, as you can see here. So for example, this kale here, this really will spring into growth when the temperature warms up. And you can see I've got kale here. I've also got some rocket here, of which some has gone to seed, but some is still okay. And there's some more spinach here. Now, one of my aims is to be able to produce my own tea, and I had a viewer the other day ask me for an update on how my tea plant is doing. So, here it is. Tea plants like a well-draining, acidic ericaceous growing medium about 4.5 to 5.5 pH, so a bit like blueberries. You can see this plant's looking very healthy, some nice leaves here, and you can see this leaf here, a nice young one. So it's in this container at the moment, and one of my plans is to repot it into a bigger container, and I may even consider planting it outside in the open ground. Should be fully hardy here in this part of the UK. So some strawberries here. This is variety Malling Centenary, which has been described as the strawberry of the future. So look into that variety Malling Centenary, a lovely variety grown commercially, and they're said to have the taste of older varieties with the size of modern ones. So isn't that fantastic? I had some Malling Centenary strawberries last summer and they were absolutely delicious, so I can make a recommendation there. A little strawberry growing tip for you here. So if you plant them in June, the year before you're expecting the first crop, and let them establish, that way you will probably get a heavier crop than if you'd waited until well into the autumn, or indeed even the spring of the growing year you're expecting the crop. That way they've got some time for establishment. Strawberries quite often produce heaviest in their second and third years, and then after that they tend to lose vigour. So for example with these, had I planted them last June, then I would expect a heavier crop from these than if I planted them this spring or later last year. So a little tip for you there if you'd like to increase your strawberry yields earlier on. Date palms. So these were grown from supermarket bought dates, the pips, the seeds, and I didn't grow these, I was given them, but you can see the cold weather is not harming these too much. Broad beans. This is variety Aquadulsa Claudia, and I sowed these I believe in December last year. I'll probably be planting these out in the ground around March time. Got some gooseberries behind me here, and there's also some currant bushes as well. So you can take cuttings at this time of year from currants, gooseberries and grapevines. So that's a very interesting thing to do. Regarding taking cuttings from gooseberries, what you would do is identify a piece of last year's growth. As you can see, it's a different colour to the older growth, and what you do is you make a cut there, cut it off, and you'd put about 3 or 4 buds below a growing medium. So say in a pot of multi-purpose compost, and you then leave about 3 or 4 buds above, and the cutting underneath the growing medium should proceed to put roots out during the next growing season. Keep it damp, keep it moist, and don't let it get stressed by too much sun. So keep it in a relatively dark, not overly sunny place, and that way you can get some nice free gooseberry plants. Isn't that brilliant? And you would do the same with a currant bush such as this. So identify your new growth and follow the same procedure as you did with gooseberries. We'll go into this polytunnel here. So the peach tree, as you can see there, variety Dixie Red. Many of you are aware of how heavy this crop last year. So I'm going to be pruning this soon. And I looked at it the other day and I noticed that the buds are starting to swell. Okay people, I hope you enjoyed that. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for viewing.